I lay back against the crisp, white sheets, the hum of the hospital monitors blending into the silence of a room that felt emptier than I'd ever imagined. My phone lay on the side table, buzzing occasionally with automated messages from the hospital staff, no familiar name, no voice I actually wanted to hear. My husband, the one person I expected to hold my hand right now, hadn't shown. Not him. Not my parents. Not my so-called closest friends. Nothing. I stared at the window, the gray October sky pressing against the glass, and for a moment, I let myself imagine them walking through that door, apologizing, realizing their mistakes. The silk of my blouse scratched lightly at my collarbone, a small irritant compared to the ache of betrayal settling in my chest. I clenched my hands in my lap, nails digging faint crescents into my palms, and tried to breathe through the hollow disappointment. The nurse's soft knock startled me. "Hannah?" she asked, holding a clipboard and a faint smile. There was no judgment in her eyes, only a kind attention I hadn't realized I'd been craving. I nodded, forcing a polite smile, my throat tight. Her presence was a tiny lifeline, a reminder that even in the absence of everyone who should have been here, someone could still care. And maybe, just maybe, that realization would change everything. I remember that night like it was yesterday, even though it had been years. I was 26, newly married, and full of hope that love and family meant unwavering support. I had just been diagnosed with a chronic condition that required immediate treatment, something serious enough to change the course of my life. My hands trembled as I tried to call my husband, Jake. His phone went straight to voicemail. I sent messages to my parents, to my friends, the people I thought would drop everything for me. Nothing. When I finally forced myself to sit down in the living room, clutching the medical papers as if they were lifelines, I heard the words I never wanted to hear. "You're overreacting," my mother said, her voice flat and distant over the phone. My father didn't even pick up. And Jake? When he finally came home hours later, he barely looked at me. "It's probably nothing." "Stop worrying so much," he muttered, tossing my papers onto the counter. My chest constricted, a lump forming in my throat that made me feel smaller than I'd ever felt in my life. I remember the tears I refused to let fall, how I paced the living room, my hands shaking and stomach twisting in knots. The silence of the people who were supposed to love me was deafening. In that moment, I realized I was utterly alone. Then came a knock at my door, Grandma Ruth, her silver hair pulled into a neat bun, holding a small velvet box. She didn't need to ask if I was okay. She handed me the box, and inside was a delicate locket. "Hannah," she said softly, "you carry your own strength. Trust it. No one else can do that for you." Her eyes held a fire I desperately needed to borrow. That night, I sat on my bed, tracing the locket with trembling fingers, making a decision I had never imagined I could. I would no longer rely on anyone else to protect me or validate my worth. I would build my life on my own terms. That night, the first seeds of independence were planted, watered by pain, and nourished by the smallest spark of hope. I left that apartment with nothing but a small suitcase, the locket from Grandma Ruth around my neck, and a determination I hadn't known I possessed. The city felt enormous, uncaring, and cold, but somehow, in that cold, I found space to grow. I rented a tiny studio, barely big enough for a bed and a desk, and spent my nights researching opportunities, learning skills I had never been encouraged to pursue. Every time exhaustion threatened to overwhelm me, I would touch the locket and remember my grandmother's words, "You carry your own strength." It was in a local networking event that I met Claire Donovan, a seasoned business consultant known for taking overlooked talent under her wing. She had this way of seeing potential, even when you doubted it yourself. I showed her a small freelance project I had been working on, messy but mine. Claire smiled, and for the first time in years, I felt seen. "Hannah," she said, "you have talent. Let's turn it into something the world can't ignore." From that moment, a mentor-mentee relationship blossomed. She guided me, pushed me, and made me believe that I could thrive, even in a world built to overlook women like me. The nights were long and often lonely. I pored over spreadsheets until my eyes blurred, took calls at odd hours, and fought the quiet voice in my head that whispered, I wasn't enough. There were mistakes, failures, and moments when I thought I'd never get there. But I also had victories, tiny, secret triumphs that no one back home would know about. My first client who paid more than I thought I deserved. My first independent project that received genuine recognition. The first time I balanced my books and realized I was not just surviving, I was building something lasting. I kept most of it hidden from everyone who had abandoned me. Social media updates were carefully curated, casual, unassuming. I didn't want pity, nor did I want jealousy. My growth was mine, and it would remain so until I chose to reveal it. And all the while, the locket rested against my chest, a constant reminder of the strength I had discovered inside myself. By the time I was 30, I had a thriving consulting business, a small team of talented women and men who believed in innovation, integrity, and hard work. I had autonomy, financial independence, and a quiet confidence that no one could take away. And yet, the wounds of absence, the empty calls, the missed visits, never fully healed. They were a shadow, yes, but one that sharpened my focus and fueled my resolve. The day I finally received the discharge papers from the hospital, the same day my family might have finally shown concern, I realized that my journey had come full circle. I had survived the worst kind of loneliness, betrayal by those who were supposed to love me, and I had emerged not just unbroken, but stronger, smarter, and unshakably self-reliant. The door creaked open, and for a moment, I considered pretending I was still the vulnerable, fragile version of myself they had abandoned. But the years of quiet work, the endless nights of struggle, had shaped me into someone who refused to play that role. My hospital room, though modest, reflected glimpses of who I had become. A sleek laptop bag by the bedside, a small bouquet of fresh flowers on the table, and a discreet folder with my business documents tucked neatly on the chair. Jake walked in first, his eyes immediately scanning the room as if he expected to see a frail, scared woman. Hannah, his voice trailed off unsure. My parents lingered behind him, faces pale, hands clasped nervously. Even my so-called friends, who had finally mustered the courage to show up, shuffled awkwardly at the edge of the doorway. I let the silence stretch. Let them sit in it. Let them feel the weight of every missed call, every ignored message, every absence that had cut me to the bone. I traced the edge of the locket against my chest and let out a slow, steady breath. Do you want to know the truth? I asked, my voice calm but firm. They exchanged glances, hesitant, desperate for a version of me they thought they knew. I smiled faintly. I'm not the woman you left alone. I'm stronger. I'm thriving. And I don't need apologies to continue living my life. I pulled the folder toward me and opened it, letting them see the documents. My business portfolio, contracts with major clients, awards, and profit statements. This, I said softly, is what I built while I waited for you to show up. While I waited for someone to care. Jake's jaw tightened. My mother's lips parted, eyes wide with a mix of guilt and disbelief. My father looked as if he might sink into the floor. Hannah, he started, but I shook my head. I continued, my voice unwavering, letting each word land like a hammer. I own my company. I make decisions that affect dozens of people. I am independent, financially secure, and respected in my field. And yes, I did it all without any of you. The room was heavy with silence again, but now it was different. This silence was theirs to endure. Their shock was tangible, almost physical, and I let it wash over them. I watched Jake swallow hard, the realization hitting him that his absence had been more than a temporary oversight. It had been a betrayal of the most intimate trust in a marriage. The nurse peeked in quietly, offering a supportive smile that did not go unnoticed. It was subtle, almost private, and yet in that glance, I felt the final seal of validation. Someone, even outside my family, saw me, the real me. I leaned back against the bed, fingers resting over the locket. You didn't come when it mattered, I said softly, and that was your choice. But now you see me, not the woman who needed you, but the woman I became because you weren't there. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of power settle onto my shoulders, not as a weapon, but as a shield forged from absence, pain, and relentless determination. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the monitors. I sat up straighter, letting the weight of my presence fill the space. This was my moment, not of vengeance, but of clarity. I had endured their absence, their dismissiveness, and now I held the power to decide how, or even if, they would be part of my life going forward. "Listen," I said, my voice steady, but not unkind. "I'm willing to let each of you back into my life, but on my terms. You need to understand what that means." Jake swallowed, his gaze fixed on my hands clasped around the locket. "Terms?" he asked, a flicker of fear in his voice. "Yes," I said. "Jake, if you want to be part of my life, you need to understand boundaries. No more dismissing my feelings, no more ignoring my needs. You must attend therapy to understand why you abandoned me and how to prevent that from ever happening again. I won't tolerate excuses." He nodded slowly, humbled, perhaps even ashamed. Turning to my mother, I continued. "Mom, you need to stop minimizing the struggles of the people you love. Attend at least one support group with me, not for my sake, but for your own growth. Learn to listen, really listen, without judgment or interruption." My father's eyes flicked to me. "And you?" he asked quietly. "You," I said, "need to face your fear of emotional closeness. Learn to express care without words of dismissal. Volunteer for something meaningful. Help others, and maybe you'll understand the importance of showing up when it counts." My friends shuffled uncomfortably at the edge of the room. "And you?" I added, smiling faintly. "If you want to remain in my life, I expect honesty and consistency. No disappearing when someone needs you. No gossiping or undermining. Friendship isn't optional. It's responsibility." The nurse's quiet presence reminded me that I wasn't alone in this, that outside validation existed beyond the family that had failed me. I paused, letting my words sink in, and then added softly, "All of you have a choice. You can choose to grow, to show up, to respect my life and my strength, or you can step back. I love you, but I will not compromise my dignity or peace again. The choice is yours." The tension in the room was palpable, but there was also a strange sense of relief. I had spoken truth, set boundaries, and clarified expectations. No manipulation. No silent resentment. Just clarity and empowered honesty. As I leaned back, I felt a new sense of calm. For the first time, I wasn't asking for permission to be respected or valued. I was demanding it, not angrily, but as a natural consequence of the woman I had become. And that, I realized, was far more powerful than any apology they could offer. Weeks passed after that day in the hospital. At first, the silence hung heavily, a lingering echo of their past absence. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to notice change. Jake attended therapy faithfully, showing up not just with words, but with actions that proved he was learning to listen, to validate, to be present. My mother joined a support group, sharing her experiences and truly hearing others for the first time, including me. My father volunteered at a local shelter, his awkwardness slowly giving way to genuine care. Even my friends began to understand what friendship required: loyalty, honesty, and presence. I watched these small, quiet changes with a mixture of surprise and cautious optimism. The journey hadn't erased years of neglect, but it opened doors to something I had never expected: authentic reconnection on my terms. And in that, I found a new kind of peace, not dependent on others, but strengthened by the fact that I could still love and forgive without compromising myself. Sitting in my living room one evening, I touched the locket Grandma Ruth had given me all those years ago. Its smooth surface felt warm against my fingers, a reminder of where it all began. The moment I realized my strength was mine alone, even when the people I trusted most were absent. That small piece of silver had carried me through loneliness, struggle, and triumph alike, a symbol of resilience that no one could take away. I leaned back in my chair, sunlight streaming through the window, and let myself smile. The woman who had been left behind, abandoned in fear and pain, was now a woman of choice, power, and grace. The hospital, the betrayals, the silent absence of family, all of it had shaped her, but none of it defined her. And in the quiet of that golden afternoon, I realized the truth that had carried me from a hospital bed to this moment. I didn't need anyone to show up for me to matter. I didn't need anyone's validation to thrive. I had always been enough. I am my own witness, my own family, and my own strength, and that is more than enough.